Hey, what's up, everybody? Cecil Lammey here on the Audible flying solo today. Sig and I are taking some time off before the craziness of the regular season begins. But 6 players that I love to stash in dynasty leagues. I've kept it down to only one rookie, although there are plenty of other rookies that I would love to stash as well. This is largely not going to be a rookie conversation. This is players that you may know. I may get a little bit deeper as things go on here, but we're going to start with Isaiah Likely in Baltimore. We've already seen it. This is a dynasty stash that everyone already knows, so maybe more difficult to get your hands on if you don't have Isaiah Likely. We saw it last year with the 5 touchdowns, 30 receptions, 411 yards, and well, without Mark Andrews, we saw games where he was catching, 5, 6 passes, getting near 100 yards. Like, it's all there with Isaiah Likely. We know that opportunity would be there for him in case something happens with Mark Andrews. And tight ends, well, they age fairly quickly. And when you've been banged up throughout his career, as Mark Andrews has, it's a situation where Isaiah Likely, I loved him coming out of college. Actually wanted the Denver Broncos to draft him. I think instead they got Greg Dulcich. How's that working out? By the way, Lucas Krolla player stash, but not a Broncos show yet. But Isaiah Likely has to be tops on the list because I play in tight end premium leagues. And in those sort of leagues, you've got to find the players that you can kind of trust to explode with tight end one numbers, which are a little bit different. There's a couple of different tiers for tight end ones, in my opinion. Likely has the ability to be a top 5 fantasy tight end if he's ever given that opportunity, whether it's with the Ravens or with another team. So dynasty leagues, I love them because you can take the long view. And with Isaiah Likely, that's a great view with his potential and upside there. Oh, man, Khalil Herbert up next. One of my favorites in the conversation when it comes to running backs, right? Because Herbert was drafted to the Bears. I'm like, oh my God, now he's in a jam-packed situation. He's still in a jam-packed depth chart there with Chicago. But that talent is there for Herbert to be the complete back, to be everything. So DeAndre Swift is there. Roschon Johnson is there as well. Both of those backs I have a great appreciation for. Well, here comes Khalil Herbert, who can do a little bit of everything. If you want to say he's Tony Pollard-like, I wouldn't be against that with Herbert. He's a player that can get it done as a runner between the tackles, or he can bounce it outside at the second level primarily. He's an inside-out runner, which I appreciate when looking at running backs. You want to find the guy who doesn't take it to the corner store immediately. He's very patient with what he does. He has good footwork and vision. And also Khalil Herbert can contribute as a receiver out of the backfield. So the Bears situation is a bit of a mess. But the running back position there is a bit cramped, a bit crowded. Khalil Herbert's the type of player, okay, you may not get much out of him from redraft standpoint because, again, he's in a 3-headed committee and he would be the 3rd on that committee. But if ever he got the opportunity to be a lead back somewhere else, I feel fully confident that Khalil Herbert would be that guy to emerge with RB2 and more, perhaps, potential. Again, I really love his game. He's just kind of waiting. He went in a bad situation where he was drafted. And that's kind of another way you can emphasize in Dynasty. You can look and say, Isaiah Likely is a starting tight end. He just happens to be behind Mark Andrews. That was somewhat of a bad situation. He's the number 2 guy there. With Khalil Herbert, it was a bad situation. He's the number 3 guy on the depth chart. And we've seen enough with Khalil Herbert to know he can do it. He can be productive in this league, even in running back by committees, which I think most fantasy GMs out there, well, we're kind of used to it by now because the league is basically running back by committee no matter where you look. So Khalil Herbert is a player that I believe in and that I trust in a dynasty format where I can wait and I can be patient with him. Now, I did promise that I wouldn't do many rookies in this conversation because I think that's a little bit different from a dynasty format. But I want to bring up 2 rookies, and one is a 7th rounder. And yes, he's here in Denver, in the Mile High City. It is a Broncos show. His name is Devaughn Vele. Now, you might look at his age and be like, he's 100 years old. Like, okay, sure. He went on a 3-year mission, went to his college career at Utah. And I wouldn't bring him up. One, because I'm not a Broncos fan. I know some people get that wrong. Like, oh, you love the Broncos. Like, no, I cover the Broncos. There's a difference. Can't really be a fan of anybody when you're an analyst, my opinion. But Devaughn Vele, I've been at every single open practice for the Denver Broncos this offseason. Devaughn Vele might be the best wide receiver that is shown with Bo Nix. And Bo Nix with the first team mostly. I've seen Jarrett Stidham with the first team in one of those open practices. Most of the time, Jarrett Stidham was with the second team. Most of the time, I saw Bo Nix with the first team. And most of the time, with the first team, he was targeting players like the aforementioned Lucas Kroll. There's the dynasty note for you, dynasty sleeper. And then Devaughn Vele, who looks like a young Tim Patrick. That's exactly who he is. Like, when I think of the type of player he could be, what's his pro comparison? It's Tim Patrick. It's easy to see Tim Patrick with that size speed combination. And outside of Josh Reynolds, who was making some plays, no drop passes for Josh Reynolds during the offseason, which is good because if you're a Lions fan, Josh Reynolds dropped a lot of passes. Marvin Mims has that speed and he can take the top off the defense, but Devaughn Vele is there with speed, with size, with hands, with body control, with the ability to get 2 feet down near the sideline or whether it's the back of the end zone. And again, that sky pass means he's always open. Throw it up, let the big man go get it. It's exactly what Devaughn Vele can do. And where I initially thought when the Broncos drafted him, I was like, oh, that's that Utah guy that's really old. Well, he's fast, he's physical, he's big. Like, there's a lot to like about Devaughn Vele. Perfect for Dynasty because nobody is drafting Devaughn Vele. In Dynasty, you might be able to go to your waiver wire right now in your Dynasty League and pick up Devaughn Vele. I would urge you to do just that because even with Troy Franklin there, Bo Nix's college teammate, the player that he has the most chemistry with, not named Lucas Kroll, it's the third time I've mentioned him, might want to go get Lucas Kroll. It's Devaughn Vele. Devaughn Vele has that chemistry. So again, Dynasty, you can take the long view. I'm not saying Vele will do much this year. He should make the 53-man roster because exposing him to the practice squad would be very dangerous for the Denver Broncos. Now, again, I promised y'all I wouldn't talk about much rookies, but I have to bring up this rookie because of the position, again, tight end, and because of the fact that I flippin' love Jared Wiley. You kidding me? When I saw him down at the Senior Bowl, Jared Wiley was a player that I kept mistaking for a wide receiver. I would rub my eyes sitting up there in the stands, and I would go, who's that big receiver from TCU that's making plays? He's not a receiver. He's a tight end. Now, he plays like a big-bodied receiver. Certainly, his game is big-bodied receiver, but he's not just again, a Greg Dulcich where don't ask him to block because he can't do it. Jared Wiley can't. Now, he's an effort blocker. You need to work on his technique. He needs to get better at that, certainly. And he's behind Travis Kelce. But Travis Kelce himself getting up there in age. So, again, tight ends, when they fall off, they just fall off. I love Isaiah Likely because he's behind Mark Andrews, who's already been a little bit banged up in his career. And you just never know. Likely could take off. Jared Wiley could be the next superstar tight end. He's on the league's greatest offense with the league's greatest quarterback. And just as a side note, this is not a fantasy football take, but I will let everyone know that when I was broadcasting for 3 days on the NFL draft for my local station, Denver Sports 104.3 The Fan, I got physically ill. The radio equipment is right behind me, by the way, right there. So I was on the air. It was the 4th round. I wanted the Broncos to take Jared Wiley because I didn't know they'd like Lucas Kroll this much. This should basically just be the Lucas Kroll show. Anyway, so Jared Wiley was drafted by the Chiefs, and I had an Isaiah Pacheco moment. If you're local, you remember how much I loved Isaiah Pacheco. I wanted the Broncos to draft him. The Chiefs pick him up, and we've seen Pacheco become a star. On my Madden Ultimate team, my starting running back, I think he's a 92. Even though my Mutt team is higher than that, I still keep Isaiah Pacheco in because I love the guy. Well, I love Jared Wiley, and it made me sick to my stomach. I literally had to stop, put down my headset, go almost throw up. Not even kidding. Because the Chiefs got Jared Wiley. The Chiefs just got a bona fide potential stud tight end. So again, I don't really want to talk about rookies on this show, but I had to bring up those 2 rookies because 1, Devaughn Vele has made more plays than anybody even knows right now. And then 2, Jared Wiley is a stud, a potential superstar tight end. You want to know how you can get the next George Kittle or the next Travis Kelce? You draft Jared Wiley, you trade for Jared Wiley in your dynasty leagues, and you never let him go. You love him forever and ever and ever. So there you go. Okay, I got the rookies out of the way. Now back to another favorite. Honestly, reminds me of another Tim Patrick. His name is A.T. Perry. with the New Orleans Saints. Now, we've seen some flashes just very briefly. 6th-round pick, of course, a couple of years ago there for A.T. Perry coming out of Wake Forest. Saw him at the Shrine Bowl, I believe, top of my head. And we've seen some brief flashes, like one catch for 44 yards in week 14 against the Panthers. Okay, the Panthers suck, whatever. One catch, 35 yards, then a touchdown against the Rams. And then that week 18 game. And I'm not saying Willie Parker, and perhaps I should find a more recent reference, but I remember back in the day when Willie Parker had a big game against the Bills in the season finale, and then the next year I had like 1,000 yards rushing. I'm not saying 1,000 yards receiving for A.T. Perry, but you saw in that season finale, week 18 against the Falcons, 3 catches, 53 yards, 2 touchdowns. A.T. Perry, again, a player I wanted the Broncos to draft. He's big, fast, and physical. He can fly and he can track the ball, and he has what scouts call late hands. So late hands are basically the ball's coming. I know it's coming, but I'm not going to turn and look until the last second and get it there because of the timing, because you can peek through your corner or whatever. But it's the receivers that really put their hands out way before the catch comes in that alert the defenders like, hey, the ball's coming. And then they can knock the pass away. When a receiver has late hands, you just running, glance up at it. Oh, yeah, there it is. Boom. Late hands for A.T. Perry. So we've seen it. I've seen it. And in dynasty formats, I'm not saying that's all it's got to take. And yes, there is a common thread with these players. I liked all of them coming out of college. And maybe that's a negative for dynasty, but it's like, okay, I liked them coming out of college. They flashed a little bit. They're just waiting for opportunity. It's the perfect dynasty formula. It's the perfect dynasty strategy because you're looking for talented players that can blow up. You don't play dynasty football so that you can get some average guys who are just okay and I competed. No, you want to get the guy that's like, I knew A.T. Perry when nobody else did, right? I drafted Devaughn Vele when he was a rookie, sat on him for 3 years, and now he's a Pro Bowler. Like something like that. Those are the type of stories. That's why we play Dynasty Fantasy Football, which is the true fantasy football, by the way. Once you play Dynasty, you just won't ever go back. It's just not the same. It's not as fun. Listen, I play redraft, all that kind of stuff, but Dynasty is certainly where it's at. So have to bring up some love for A.T. Perry. Again, just there kind of, we're waiting for more. We've seen it. We've seen him do a little something. So we want to see that continue with the New Orleans Saints. We'll see what Derek Carr and company can do. And of course, Chris Olave there, Rashid Shaheed doing his thing, Cedric Wilson, but A.T. Perry right there, 3rd or 4th receiver on a passing game that could have a little bit more robustness, be a little more robust than some people think. I know Jahan Dotson there along Taysom Hill probably going to steal some targets there as well. But like, all right, I'm trying to find guys that are a little bit deeper. I could go deeper than this, but keep it somewhat, deep enough, but not crazy deep. Like, hey, wait 10 years. Like, no, I think A.T. Perry could have value this year. You can get him for bargain basement prices right now in your dynasty league. So my final player to talk about here in 6 dynasty stashes that I love, going back to the draft and going back to my conversations on the sidelines about Jahan Dotson. Now, these are conversations that I had with KJ Hamler when he was with the Broncos. And KJ, of course, the Penn State speedster, 2nd-round pick, didn't do anything. Broncos washed him away. But I remember talking to KJ when he was going through his rehab, and he's like, Jahan's better than me. And Jahan was his protege at Penn State. And now we've seen the flashes. Like he flashed and then, didn't flash. So again, when you look at Dynasty, who are players that you can get potential value with? Now, Jahan Dotson, the 1st rounder a couple of years ago, and he flashed with the 7 touchdowns. Only 4 touchdowns last year. But the 7 touchdowns aren't even his forte. And he's a player that still, yards per reception were down almost 4 yards, a little bit over 4 yards, in fact, last year compared to his rookie season when he only played in 12 games. Last year was full 17 games, 83 targets, 49 catches, 518 yards, and the aforementioned 4 touchdowns. The reason I love Jahan Dotson is because I love Jaden Daniels. And if you're an LSU fan, or maybe not, but what do we know about Jaden Daniels? He throws it deep, and then one of the prettiest deep passes that you'll see. He's very aggressive. He needs to change his running style because he'll probably get himself hurt, unfortunately. I love Jaden Daniels. But he was my number one quarterback this year. But with Jaden Daniels, I'm always worried that he's just going to run himself into trouble because he runs like he's Josh Allen or Cam Newton, and he's not built that way. He's a lot more slender. Remember Robert Griffin III, something like that. Although a much better passer than RG3 was, even in his own mind, because RG3 thought he could throw, so much so that he told Mike Shanahan, I'm not running these plays. How'd that work out? Anyway, back on track with the Jaden Daniels love, which leads to Jahan Dotson love, because we still haven't seen the speed that you could consistently see from Jahan Dotson. He's essentially Deshaun Jackson. You have that guy catching passes from that dude, from Jaden Daniels. So I guess there's rookie conversation in here again, because it's Jaden Daniels, who's flipping fantastic when it comes to leading his receivers, put enough air under the ball so that they have time to run underneath it. And I bet Jahan Dotson's the type of guy he can't outthrow. It'll be like back in the day, Deion Sanders, they would say Troy Aikman would throw up passes as far as he could throw from the line of scrimmage. Deion would take off running and run underneath the pass. Like Troy Aikman could not outthrow Deion Sanders. I believe Jaden Daniels cannot outthrow Jahan Dotson because he can teleport down the field. And much like Deshaun Jackson and what he was able to do, even if it was only brief, because again, Dynasty, listen, fantasy football, it's not love. It's not forever, okay? So if you get your window with Jahan Dotson, it was only 4 games this year, whatever, you got a window. And that window you can use to produce points and produce wins for your fantasy team, or build up hype so you can trade a guy before his window goes away. So whatever you think of these players' windows, and I think if we talk about that, Likely's window is very big as a tight end 1 eventually. Khalil Herbert, a running back 2 eventually. His window's small because he's a running back, even though he'll have some low miles. Jared Wiley, I think his window is very large. When he takes over in Kansas City, potential superstar tight end right there. Devaughn Vele, I think because of his age, and we have to see how this Sean Payton offense works with Bo Nix. It should be much better because they're actually going to run the offense, not the playground football you saw from Russell Wilson. So I think there's somewhat of a smaller window with Vele, but it could work out really well. It's a nice wide receiver 3 flex option for you. A.T. Perry, it's the window of Derek Carr. And then we have to talk about who's next. And is Perry even there? He's one of those guys that just flashes but never puts it together. Or does he build off the momentum that he built last year? So I think there's a larger than people think window with A.T. Perry. And then Jahan Dotson, Jaden Daniels, as long as he can stay healthy, one of his favorite targets, and especially his favorite downfield target. We know that Terry McLaurin is going to move the chains. There's no doubt there. He's the number 1 guy. He's going to, fill there with footballs, all those sorts of things. But when you need to take the top off the defense, when you need to blow by defenders, when you need to scare a defense, it's Jahan Dotson. So he's my final and 6th player that I love as Dynasty Stashes. I've got more. Trust me, I've got more and could go on and on and on, but I'll wrap it up for today. It is The Audible, our Football Guys YouTube channel. We've got 3 of them now, so make sure to subscribe to all of our channels, The Audible. About 52% of you that watch are not subscribed. Please subscribe and like this video. Subscribe to our Fantasy Football channel and our Dynasty Football channel as well, footballguys.com, where we've got you covered. Check out our free daily newsletter at footballguys.com. I'm Cecil Lammey for Sigmund Bloom saying, thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned, and would you please stay frosty.